afternoon, almost. No, it's still morning. Good morning, Justice Warriors. How are you? Fred Field, are you still here? It is just about 11:15 on Monday. I think it's the 17th of June, 2024. So, how are you guys? And I don't know if you're still here or not, Mr. Fred Field. And where did my pen go? You guys, I learned a lot about Lumberton, North Carolina. It's not a good place. And it's 24 minutes from Lumber River State Park. So it's got the highest crime rate in the state of North Carolina. And it's also where Michael Jordan's father was taken out. So weird, huh? Hey, Sherry, what's going on? So, yeah, I wanted to follow up on Micah Miller's gang stalking situation that seems to be spreading on the YouTube like wildfire. And I think that it's that one channel that started it, Freedom Voice Online. So that creator says that he was gang stalked, and that's how he knows so much about it. And that's why he started his channel like 5 years ago, was to bring awareness to it. And yeah, I know exactly what he's talking about. So gang stalking and street theater go together. So what JP is a master at, obviously both those things, but the street theater, I would say the laying on the grass and the ants crawling on him thing, probably some street theater there. He's all theatrical. I mean, he's like street theater in the pulpit. He's street theater in his little, I just realized I don't have my mic on. I think I know where it is. Let me see. I'm going to go grab it. I found it, you guys, but how ridiculously annoying is that? I always try to remind myself, if that's my biggest problem, I'm one lucky person. But yeah, that's just frustrating because I had it in my purse because I took it to the yoga studio with me because I was making a yoga video and the sound was terrible. And in that situation, the mic was absolutely essential and it fixed the problem. I'm going to try the mic on my shirt, and I don't know if it'll, make weird noises because of the fabric, but we'll just try it. It's an experiment. So sorry to get up and leave on you. Let's do all of the stuff that I like to do. Thumb, where are you? Please hit that like button if you'd be so kind. And make sure that you're still subscribed. Turn on your notification bell to ring. And what was the other one? Share a video of mine if you like. Let your friends know about my channel. I try to just be myself, be authentic, kind of go unscripted, but I always like to have my notes. So I've got something solid for all of us to sink our teeth into. Hopefully. Let's see. Now I spoke too soon. And then I've got my phone if I need to look anything up. And yeah, a couple of things I wanted to discuss aside from Micah Miller's case. And everything I say is simply my opinion for the sake of starting a conversation. Always hoping to open up a discussion and learn something and be educational. All my videos are made for YouTube. It's an entertainment platform, and I do like to try to allow you to enjoy the chakra tower that I have spent months and months on perfecting. Everything's a work in progress, and I'm going to be honest with you guys. This morning, I thought, you know what? I should just tear down all of my set except for the chakra tower. And then I was like, oh, man, that's so much work. And I like my set. It's just that it does get a little bit busy, and I like to do the less is more thing. Totally. So I got my Justice A to Z that I'm blocking. Where can I sit just perfectly so that I'm not blocking the Chakra Tower or the Justice A to Z? There, I'm just going to stay right here and not move there from an angle. Okay, enough of that. Anyway, back to the points. Talking about Micah Miller, talking about Kiely Rodney, and talking a little bit about Nicole Brown Simpson, sorry. She's got some things in common with Micah Miller. OJ and JP, not just the letters and the alphabet. We'll get to that. Let's see. The Idaho 4, I've got something to say about that. And what else? There are some really good channels doing the work of angels for Micah Miller. And I think that's about it. Annie Ruler, now that you're here, we can really get started. No, I'm just kidding. Sherry and Fred, I appreciate all of you guys. All of you. So we got a nice little group of 4. You got your coffee. I got my coffee, my cute little New York mug. There we go. Does it say New York on both sides? I think it does. New York City. Bite the big apple, but don't mind the maggots, right? Mick Jagger. Okay. I haven't seen you guys since what, Friday or something like that? And yeah, weekends are so crazy and summertime is so crazy. I mean, however many of you are parents and remember what it's like when your kids are all in the house all summer. Fortunately, my 2 older children both have jobs. But there's still, I like my solitude and I like my structure and I like my routine. And it's really hard for me to do the things that I like to do, like my yoga and my YouTube channel. So I'm just doing my best. And I apologize that I can't really do weekend videos. And this coming weekend is going to be really hard. But I'm going to just keep doing what I do and try to give you guys all the material that I can. Because I feel like I have a unique perspective, and I'm not saying that my perspective is any more valid than anyone else's. It's just that we do have so many voices on YouTube, and I like to hear your voices. I like to come on live with my notes and respond to you guys so that I really have no idea where the conversation is going to go. That's why I always review my videos and try to do some damage control and fact check myself. So if I'm talking about old cases that I wasn't expecting to talk about, that I hadn't looked up in years and years, I can try to make sure that I got the names right and the years right and all that. But I try to say things in such a way that if I get it inaccurate, it's okay. Like I can say like, well, it was about 2016, give or take, right? And then if I'm off, then I can say, okay, well, here's the year. And it's really important, I feel like, to not get hung up on those little things. Like I hear other content creators make those types of mistakes often and not clean them up. And it is distracting, I will say that, but you know what they're trying to say. And if you just don't focus on it and let it go, I think it can be good to just allow them to get their ideas out, because, it's a little nerve-wracking talking to the camera. And I mean, honestly, I'm pretty comfortable with it. But when I'm watching my videos, I'm like, how do I even do that? So now that I've said all that, I'm going to make myself really self-conscious. I mean, it is a trip and a half, but those of you that have done public speaking, I mean, because this feels private when it's just the 4 of us. But we all know that it'll get watched by a few dozen people, hopefully. I mean, lately my videos have had 100 views, which is great. I appreciate every single view. There was a time when that would have been an utter failure to me. But, I just take it all in stride. I know that there's the shadow banning that's very real. I know that putting yoga and true crime together like really tanked the viewership that I had, and that's okay. And I apologize for being monetized, because that has been an issue. My channel gets monetized and then it gets unmonetized. They keep coming up with these little tiny things that are, me and my IT crew fix them, and then I monetize for a minute, and then they come up with something else. So I don't know if that's just YouTube or if that's just me because I'm special. The whole thing with Kiely Rodney's case and other cases like that I think do put us in the shadow banning, because when YouTube wants to promote you, they promote you, and you can pay to be promoted, and it's not cheap. And, I'm just doing it organically. Anyway, talking about the gang stalking, the street theater, the situation with JP and OJ Simpson being similar in a lot of ways. Veronica Adams, oh man. So she's a channel that I've recently been introduced to, and I like her a lot. She called JP the Puff Daddy of preachers, and I just thought that's great. I might use that in my title here. I just want to make sure I give her full credit, Veronica Adams, and I'll put a link in the description to a couple of her videos that she's done about the gang stalking. So there's a lot of people that are going over that with a fine-tooth comb. The videos, the surveillance cameras of Micah in the parking lot of the gas station, in the parking lot of the pawn shop, in front of her door, inside the pawn shop. I think it was Veronica Adams that brought up, why is there no footage inside the gas station? Because that's where they always have footage, because those places get robbed, right? I mean, it's not that uncommon. But another thing that we don't have is we don't have any police body cams from the law enforcement going out there to Lumber River State Park. And no body cams, no dash cams. Like maybe those departments, the sheriff's department, is it Robeson County Sheriff, I think, maybe they don't have body cams and dash cams, but if they don't, then why not? Because that's pretty standard, best practices in this day and age to protect themselves as well as the public. YouTube demonetizes when they want. 100% to them is more than 40% to them. Right, Annie Ruler. I know, because they just have so many tricks. And yeah, I try not to worry about it. But I do want to make some money with my channel, because I want to be able to continue doing it and not have to get a different JOB than the JOBs that I already have. I spell the word out because I think it's a dirty word. In a sense, I mean, I'm joking, but truth to every joke. No gas station video in Kiely's case either. LOL. No, none of the footage from outside of the gas station, and then none of the footage from inside the gas station. Just a still shot that I'm pretty sure is not Kiely. It took me a long time to buy into that theory, but I'm about 100% sure, in my opinion, that that's not Kiely, and that it's scammy. The chest tattoo, sorry, I tapped the thing. It might have sounded funny. The chest tattoo, I always thought that was a shadow, but I think it's the flower that Scammy has on her chest. It is, Sammy, Fred says. Hey, Ranch Boss, what's up? Nice to see you. So yeah, I was able to watch some Mark Molina live in the last 24 hours. I was able to catch Shan live. Was that last night or the night before? Something like that. I think it was the night before. There were a couple of things I wanted to add to. I think Murderous Minds is a really small channel that I'd like to help promote, because they do really good work and they're really focused on Kiely Rodney. I think it was them that brought up the keys in a video from a few days ago. Kiely's keys. We've never gotten an update. Were Kiely's keys found or not found? Her freaking cell phone. Her laptop. I think it's really suspicious that there's not video footage of her driving her vehicle, like, traffic cams, especially if she went to hot August nights, right? Because then you'd be on like Interstate 80 or 84, one of those. Anyway, it makes me think that there is a possibility that things happened earlier than that night. And there's been a lot of speculation about that over the couple of years since it happened, since whatever happened, right? And Crime Watch with Kenny and Mr. Mark Molina, those two have discussed it a lot in depth, and they're both very meticulous. And I think there's been other content creators that have spoken to it. But one of the things that I just thought of this morning, and forgive me if other people have said this already, is that perhaps the interactions that Grandpa and Mom say that they had with Kiely that day, perhaps those are untrue. Perhaps that didn't happen that day. I always find it suspicious when the last communication somebody had with someone missing is either an argument or "bye, I love you." Like that little catchphrase, "bye, I love you," is sort of a red flag in my mind. Also, any kind of disagreement, of course, is a red flag. But with Grandpa, and I think he said that he saw her at lunch or something that day. And then Kylie's mom says that she texted with her that day. I mean, where wouldn't you have those texts? Wouldn't we have seen those by now? And then, of course, we all know about the alleged text conversation with Jägermeister, where he says his last words aren't "bye, I love you." It's "don't do anything stupid." That's kind of like an argument almost. I mean, that's kind of not real warm and fuzzy. But my point is that it's really hard to trust anything in these cases, isn't it? Especially when you've got law enforcement that is compromised. So hopping right over into Idaho 4, I always forget this guy's name, and I thought of it this morning, and I'm like, why do I always go blank on Sergeant Blaker? So Sergeant Blaker is the one that I'm trying not to say Kiely Gonzalez, or Kiely G, that she contacted about a year prior. I think it was like October of 2021. She contacted the Moscow PD because she thought she saw a missing woman in a Walmart, and it was Sergeant Blaker that handled her case. It was also Sergeant Blaker that trespassed on the property when they hadn't even gotten a call for noise complaint, and they admitted that they were trespassing, and they admitted that they didn't get a call on their own body cams, and for that we can thank them. And then Blaker is the one who said, no stairs to the balcony, that's interesting, or something like that, right? So freaking bizarre. And Drip Drop just put out a new Idaho 4 video this morning, which I'm always excited when Drip Drop drops a video. I wish he'd cover Kiely Rodni. I've asked him directly, and he has expressed interest, but I don't think he's ever done a Kiely Rodni video yet. So everybody email him and ask him to do a Kiely Rodni video, and I bet he would, because he likes to interact with his viewers, and he likes to respond positively to positive feedback. But anyway, Sergeant Blaker, again, not just the guy that took the case with Kiely and then says, oh, look, no stairs to the balcony, no access to the balcony. So that's even more specific. Like, why is he thinking about accessing the balcony? And that's not weird. I mean, a lot of balconies don't have access, right? I mean, some do and some don't. Like, I'd say it's probably 50-50. And if you have a bedroom up there, why would you wouldn't want that? I wouldn't think. I mean, that's freaking dangerous, especially for a female. But anyway, Most importantly, Sergeant Blaker is the guy who took 4 hours and arrived with Corporal or Detective Brett Payne to the crime scene when there were allegedly 4 deceased college kids in this slightly off-campus housing. And how much more suspicious can this case be just from jump, just with the 8 hours of the frozen shock phase? And then what? Were Blaker and Payne, were they in their own little frozen shock phase? Like, they never explained why it took them 4 hours to get there. It shouldn't take them 4 hours. And if they were out of town, they shouldn't have been the ones in charge. And I don't think Blaker was necessarily in charge. It was Brett Payne, but Blaker outranked Brett Payne. So why wouldn't Blaker be in charge? Why would you have a newbie? I mean, he was relatively new, and I love his fuzzy math. Now he says that, I thought I just heard a ping. Now he says, Brett Payne says that he's been with the department for 6 years, and he hasn't. He's been with the department for about 4 years now, and it was 2 years back then when this happened. So Blaker's been there a lot longer. He has a lot more experience, and he's the only other Moscow law enforcement officer that admits to seeing the shady sheath, or the shaky sheath, shall I say, to quote that channel Subconscious Mouth. And where did they go? I loved their channel. Subconscious Mouth was interesting too, because they started their channel. I always do this on channels when I'm new to them. I look at the date that they started. Subconscious Mouth started just a few days before the Idaho 4 happened. And then I don't know that he covered any other cases other than Idaho 4, but he was fascinating, very interesting. And then he stopped. So I don't know what's up with that. I think it could be anything. Could just be authentic and genuine, or it could be something more sinister. I don't know. I hate to say that about him, because he seems like a regular person, which was why I liked his channel so much. But it was really weird to me that it started in those early November, like just a few days before the slaughter happened. Annie Ruler, sorry, I missed all of these great comments. Yes, by I love you, even by the voice analysis type guys say baloney. See, I love hearing that, because I don't really pay attention to those voice analysis type guys, because I think a lot of them are just, they're not going to go against the grain. They're going to go with kind of the law enforcement narrative. So I don't waste my time on them. And there's so many good channels that I love that I have so much trouble keeping up with. And I like finding new ones too. Sergeant Blaker noticed no stairs from third story, and they didn't want to mention sheath. And they say, didn't want to mention sheath. Rosendale led Blaker, in my opinion, to the trespass. Blaker stood back, in my opinion. Right. Well, the conversation that they had there, right, as they were walking down the street from the actual alleged noise complaint that they had that was over at Jack D's house. And then Rosendale, thank you for putting his name there, because I always call him Rosie and forget his whole name. Rosendale basically said, like, let's go check on the girl's house or something. You might remember his words more specifically. And Sergeant Blaker, who outranked him, said, you can do that on your next shift. Explicitly, you can do that on your next shift. Like, he knew that Rosie just wanted to go see the pretty girls. Just like when Brett Payne is grilling Xana and trying to find Madison Mogan, and he calls her Megan, and poor little Xana says, I don't have a Megan. So cute. But these cops were gang stalking that house 100%, in my opinion. And even like the things like the guys crossing Banfield and getting stopped by the undercover police, that could be considered potentially street theater. That's what these people do. They're masters at it. And then it's a big distraction. Look, everybody like watches the cops. Like, look over here, what's going on here, when the people are running in the background. And when those body cam footage tapes first were released to the public, I think we all took it in stride. Like, yeah, there's activity going on. But with all that activity going on, all those people running around, they would have heard screams. And certainly you're not going to have 4 people taken out like that without some crazy noises. And then we got to remember that one channel, Joseph Morris, got crucified. They said that he invented that, what was it? A Ring doorbell cam footage with the audio of the screams. And I think there's like a dog barking on it. And they lambasted him and said it was fake news. And right away, my first instinct was to believe them. And then I was like, wait, is it? Or are they like making him the sacrificial lamb to do what they did with the fake news with like Kiely's bodysuit and all of these things? Craziness. It's so annoying. My 18-year-old granddaughter always says, I love you when hanging up or texting, LOL. I do too. Actually, me and my kids, and maybe you guys can relate to this, these days, everything is shorthand. So whether we're in person talking or on the phone or texting, we usually just say love. Bye, love. So I've heard other people do that too. So it's just interesting because if your person is missing, I think you're going to focus more on the rest of the conversation of what you spoke about rather than, all I know is the last thing I said was I love you. So what? Does that make it okay if you never see them again? And does that make you not a suspect? I mean, you're looking for information to find your person. And I also want to bring up how sus it is to me when Kate Cunio said, making creme brulee, that there was nothing unusual, that she seemed totally normal. And to me, that has always implied the plan A, which was to pretend that she didn't want to be forgotten. She just wanted to disappear, like the stupid made up Lana Del Rey sweatshirt said. And they were trying to pretend that she ran off and, it was her own doing, right? I mean, that was plan A. And then that was ultimately the final narrative official consensus. She did this to herself. And I think at this point in time, it's like 1,000% blaringly obvious to a lot of us that that's just utter crap. And trying to undo their lies, I say all of us that are interested need to just keep trying to chip away at the inconsistencies, whether we're content creators or not, keeping the views up, keeping the comments up, keeping her name out there. Let's see. I said that about cop, hey Mary, who said no backstairs hum. I said that was weird too. I don't know if you were trying to say hun, Mary Thomas, but yeah, it's totally weird. It's totally bizarre. And what was that? Like, I think that was roughly a month before the quadruple homicide. So another thing I wanted to bring up that I think I just thought of, and I don't think I've ever heard anyone say it, is about this whole incel thing and the criminal defendant being vegan. These to me are just weird pieces of information that the public was fed to kind of make us not identify with him, to like think of him as not really human. I think most people eat meat, or at least if they don't, they're vegetarian. Very few people are vegan. That's a tough thing to do and to stay healthy. And this whole incel thing, And then a lot of people that don't eat meat or don't eat animal products, it's because they respect life and that's their angle. So you think about somebody like Brett Payne, who's a hunter, and and he has like a butcher shop. He's got like a slaughterhouse, meats and locker. And if he knew Kohberger, which I believe he did, and maybe he was like mocking Kohberger for being vegan, and maybe that was part of it, was it'll be so funny when we pin this completely grisly slaughter on somebody who, won't even kill an ant. Possibly. I don't know. Just possibly. I don't believe that Kohberger was an incel. I think that was a pile of malarkey too. I still don't believe the whole Margaret Atwood photograph thing. Sure, she probably went to the school. I think that that's legit, and she presented there, and maybe he was there, but maybe they didn't get a perfect picture of him there, so they just copied and pasted that one. That's a possibility too. But why are we looking at pictures of him with Margaret Atwood in the room, and there's no pictures of him anywhere else in his life with anyone else in the room? There's like a picture of him outside in the snow doing this. There's maybe a picture or two of him with his lab partner, or maybe not with his lab partner, or maybe his lab partner took the picture where he's like got his pen and he's looking all smart. There's very, very, very few pictures of him. There's the one of him doing a push-up when he was really heavy. And I've gone into that, how he was like persecuted on social media for being heavy. And then he was persecuted on social media for losing weight. They've spent 2 years trying to dig up dirt on this guy, and all they can come up with was some girl that he might have felt jilted by in 6th grade, basically, you guys. Come on. Yeah, I know the stuff about his rug use. I know the stuff about the cell phone that he stole from his sister that they reported to law enforcement. But some of that is pretty common teen stuff. And then the alleged bad Tinder date. I don't know if that's even believable. She was totally creeped out, but she invited him up to her place. That doesn't make sense. But anyway, the one story that makes him look a little off, that seems legit, is a girl from when he was in 6th grade. Come on, you're trying to say that this guy is what you're trying to say he is? You can make up better lies than that, can't you? The whole sheath thing, it's a shaky piece of evidence. And then Blaker and Payne were inconsistent. One of them said that it was laying on the bed. I think it was Blaker who said it was, one of them said you could see it when you walked in the door. You could see it from the doorway on top of the comforter next to Maddie. The other one said that it was under Maddie, which if it, either one of those, it maybe would have had some of the red stuff on it. And then the fact that it went to an Idaho, I almost said Iowa, it went to an Idaho state lab and they found nothing on it. That's suspicious right away. You should find something on it, because at some point in time, somebody should have touched it. And because it's leather and it's porous, it's gonna be really hard to clean all the DNA off of there. So for them to say that they tested it, there was nothing there, and then they sent it to Texas, which again, it's out of law enforcement custody. It's in probably the federal mail system. That's probably how they can try to justify and say, well, it's safe because it's federal mail and nobody's allowed to touch federal mail except the sender and the receiver and the postal carrier, who's a federal employee. So everything's trustworthy. And then they try to say that this little tiny strand of the touch DNA, that the whole thing. Anyway, maybe we should quit talking about that case because it's crazy. It's crazy. Let's see. I feel stairs were removed off Short and by Maddie's side, wood looks like it was cut off. Ooh, Annie, I've never considered that. But then there's that ladder that was leaning up against the house that they tied the crime scene tape to the ladder. Like, that was bizarre. That was so bizarre. One of Drip's videos, I think, showed close up of edges of decking. I feel Blaker would not lie for Fry to the degree. Well, and then the evidence, schmevidence, the sheath was taken in by the ISP trooper. I have his name. I just looked it up a couple weeks ago. The ISP trooper who was involved in Dr. Drake's wrongful conviction for the murder of Dr. Drake. What's that guy's name? Annie, you know who I'm talking about. And when I tried to look it up before while I was on a live, it was really hard to find it. Let's see. No, I can't even look it up. I have to spell it all out. I can't do the ISP. Idaho State Patrol. It was under investigation. That was like the Brady Giglio thing. I should be looking because you guys probably put it up here. Tolson. Thank you, Annie. You nailed it. Yes. And see, it doesn't even come up. It's like, it's really hard to find it. Yeah. Tolson. So, and Dr. Drake's unaliving happened 4 hours away from Moscow. It happened in Bonner's Ferry, which just so happens to be where the Meats and Locker Company is. So, State Trooper Tolson, in my opinion, should not have been there. And then he happens to be the one who takes it into evidence. That's weird. And that's a pretty long distance. I mean, state highway patrol troopers are usually designated to one area or another. Maybe he was transferred from one region to another. I don't know, but it's just a weird coincidence, isn't it, that Brett Payne happens to own the Meats and Locker Company there. We can go on and on, right? Okay. And Annie says, when I read that, I'm glad I looked back and reread it. I feel Blaker would not lie for Fry to the degree. And I was thinking you were talking about Payne. So yeah, for Fry. And now he's running for sheriff. And you have to remember, Fry's wife was nominated or elected to be the clerk of courts just like 5 days before the unalivings. And she was already in charge of the finances of the city, you guys. She was already like the financial director. She was hired to be the financial director of Moscow 2 years before Fry was installed as their police chief. And then the guy that they have as their police chief now, I forget his name, but he's only 39 years old, which is pretty young. And he's got some experience under his belt, but Roger Lanier, he was one of the 4 final candidates when Fry was selected. So I would imagine that Captain Lanier was not very happy with getting passed over. I don't know. I do not know. Some people were too close, in my opinion, and got computers hacked. Many good channels backed off. Yeah, and Joseph Morris, I mean, he seems like a good channel to me. I know a lot of people were, kind of beating him up. He took a lot of abuse, but he's still around and he's got a lot of viewers. And, I mean, everybody on YouTube has their quirkiness, right? I mean, they should anyway. If not, then they're artificial intelligence, in my humble opinion. And there are definitely some that are that. So Rosendale said, let's go check that speaker. Blaker, check next shift. Oh, Annie, you are so freaking on it. Look at you go, girl, with all the specifics. I love it. It's good to be specific. Joseph Morris was replay from 2013 Horror Scream was replayed same morning. Huh. Like from a movie? I wanted to talk about some movies. Maybe not 2013, but yes, back. And let's see. Yeah, so movies that I have watched over the weekend that I wanted to share with you guys because I love documentaries. Hello, Anna Bees. He is walking in the video at Margaret Atwood. Might have been to get autograph for mom. I've never seen the actual video, but again, our technology with our artificial intelligence is supreme. And then when you've got people with military experience and military contacts, I mean, I just wouldn't put anything past the photograph that they made really famous of him sitting like in the front row with his book on his lap, and he's all excited and happy to be there. And he looks like, kind of a big beefy guy, like a stud muffin, and his head doesn't fit. And the coloring is off. The lighting is off. And even Atwood walking down the aisle between the rows of seats looks suspicious also. Like she kind of looks like she's floating. It's hard to say. I mean, we just had this weekend of Kate Middleton allegedly coming out in public for the first time in 6 months, almost. Yeah, I think 6 months, almost exactly. Because it was December 25th. So, and, a lot of people are tearing that up. And of course, I mean, they're always going to on the internet, but I don't know. That's a whole nother thing. Trooper Tolson, I heard Fry had sheath in truck for 12 or so days. Annie, why did they leave all of the victims' cars in the parking lot or, the gravel driveway of 1122 King Road at the residence? Why did they leave all those cars there for 2 weeks? And then when they finally towed them, they towed them to Coomer Scott Green's house down the street. That was freaking nuts. Like those cars should have been taken into evidence and fingerprinted and, black boxes looked at so you can see where they went. I mean, there's so much shady business going on. Lana solved the Dr. Drake slaying. She dissected the videos. And I have meet and greet to get to see Lindsay Sterling, the 5th of August, 2024. I feel guilty trying to enjoy myself on the anniversary of 16-year-old Kylie Rodney being lured to a beatdown. Comments. I like the way you phrased that. I mean, she very well could have been lured to a beatdown, but it also could have been something else entirely different. Like she could have already been in a compromised state, and that Kylie Rodney party could have been something entirely different, more like the Donner Party, but without the cannibalism. I shouldn't say that word, should I? We still need to live our lives and go enjoy yourself. Absolutely. And in her honor, especially music, because, she, being a singer, I would say, you can kind of commune with her spirit, so to speak. And also, we don't know the exact date. So we don't know that it was the 5th, the 6th, after that, before that. Joseph Morris likely played a tape sent to him. Yeah. And then we've got all that shady stuff with Einan Harsh. I feel neighbors must have reported something being done with HC Jeep. HC Jeep Hunter Chapin. Oh, yeah. Kiely would want you to have fun. Absolutely. So let's see. What are the movies that I watched this weekend? I watched the brand new Amy Winehouse movie, Back to Black. I highly recommend it. It's great. She's such a talented singer. So awesome. And again, maybe watching it in memory of Kiely Rodni, because Kiely could have well been another Amy Winehouse for all we know. Literally, not just figuratively, but actually. She was that talented, in my opinion. And the story with Amy Winehouse is just devastating. There's been so many movies made about her rise and fall. And this one, Back to Black, is a Hollywood rendition. They cast it very well. Personally, I like to watch actual documentaries with actual video footage of the actual people. I find that much more fascinating. But as far as Hollywood movies go, it was done really well. So O.J. Simpson was probably stalking Nicole Brown Simpson. Again, I just thought of this morning for the first time ever, and maybe you guys have thought about it before. Maybe plenty of people have talked about it, that he may have been stalking her house the way he allegedly was that night. He may have been doing that routinely. And then that night was the perfect storm. So I hadn't thought about that, because this was 1994. It was 1994. I'm sure about that because we had just moved to San Francisco the night that it happened for graduate school. So I know when I went to graduate school, although sometimes I do get things wrong when I think I have them right. Hold on. Anyway, so he may have even had tracking devices. I don't know what the technology was like back then. Obviously, it was before cell phones. But again, O.J. Simpson was famous and rich and privileged and part of the elite. J.P. Miller, rich, privileged, maybe quasi part of the elite. I would say definitely part of the South Carolina elite, right? I mean, not to the degree of the Murdoch family, but if you looked at everyone in the population of Myrtle Beach, he was probably part of that 1%. Maybe there's more wealth there than I know. But contrasting that with Lumberton, we need to talk about Lumberton, but I want to finish talking about the commonalities with OJ getting reported by Nicole to law enforcement, and law enforcement not really doing anything with OJ, right? So that same thing happened with Micah. So they were privileged. They were basically given a license to unalive, in my opinion. They both were trying to report that they felt like their lives were in danger. And essentially they were being ignored by law enforcement, which is very unfortunate and not uncommon. And then rat bastard Simpson would accuse Nicole of having created the bruises that she photographed. She was documenting just like Micah was documenting. And then OJ would try to say that Nicole was doing that to herself. Do you guys remember that? Just like JP would say that, Micah was self-destructive. And his dad would say that she was destructive, when he alleged that she was shooting up the neighborhood 2 weeks into the marriage. Give me an effing break. But yeah, I really want to know why the Robeson County sheriff does not have police body cam or dash cam footage of them arriving at the Lumber River State Park. And going back into the town of Lumberton, I want to give credit to JLR Investigates. He did a video that I'll link in the description. I think it was about 7 or 8 months ago, about Lumberton being the most dangerous, I guess it's a city. I was going to say town, but I think it's a city. The most dangerous place in North Carolina, like more dangerous than all the big cities of North Carolina that are bigger than it. So in his video, I watched the whole thing, and it really breaks it down that Lumberton, to me, sounds a lot like Flint, Michigan, like a very desolate, poverty-stricken town where there's just so much violence. And then you're going to have a lot of trouble getting law enforcement to work, to hire law enforcement in a city that dangerous. And then you're also going to have the corruption, unfortunately. So I thought it was interesting. I did not know this at all. I've never been to Lumberton that I know of. I mean, maybe I've been through it and wasn't really aware, like on a road trip or something. But the fact that she was an hour and a half or more away from her home, and that she just happened to be 24 minutes outside of Lumberton, in the same county as Lumberton, so with the same law enforcement as Lumberton. The fact that she was found in the most dangerous area of North Carolina, what a coincidence, right? What an absolute coincidence. But yeah, I love what Veronica Adams said about calling JP the Puff Daddy of preachers. Like that should be her tagline. That is hilarious. So Shan's video, her most recent live, she was, who did she have on panel? I think Billy Darling, and they were fabulous. And I was trying to come up on panel. I don't think she saw my requests, or other people that were bolstering me saying Jazz wants the link. And I really appreciate that. Some of you guys that are here were probably, maybe one or two of you were doing that for me, and I totally appreciated it. But at the same time, it was fine to not go up on panel because I was super tired. So I was happy to be in chat too. I thought if she sees me, there's things that I wanted to say pertaining to the conversation that was just too much to try to do it all in the chat. But essentially, Shan was breaking down the photograph, the little Polaroid in Jägermeister's hand, and the Sleepy video where she's wearing the flannel shirt, and not video, sorry, the Sleepy photograph where she's wearing the flannel shirt. And both of those photos are so weird. And then Mark Molina did a video, I think it was yesterday, breaking down the photograph of the three girls, black and white, the Be Real picture, the three girls in the back seat of a vehicle, and they've got like the dome light on. And I have referred to that photograph as like the Weekend at Bernie's photograph, because I think that might be Kiely. And that, I think all three of those photographs, she might be not breathing and her heart not pumping, expired. And I think that at least the two that Shan was looking at on her video, I think have been significantly altered with, like even the Polaroid. I mean, you can alter a Polaroid just as easily as you can alter a digital photograph. And there's too much weird stuff that doesn't make sense in both of these pictures. But one of the things that I don't know that anyone's mentioned is Kylie's hairline in the one where her head looks like she might be underwater, and her ear is like an alien ear. It's so bizarre. And maybe that's because it was trigger warning, like in boxing, what they call cauliflower ear, when people get their ears messed up. maybe her ear was messed up and that was all they could do to fix it in the photograph. I don't know. Or maybe it's just a bizarre image for some other reason. But right next to her ear, the hairline, it looks like she might have had hair ripped out, which would be consistent with a girl fight. I mean, usually when girls fight, they scratch and they pull hair. I mean, not to sound sexist or anything, but I've seen it. I've seen it with my own eyes. Let's see, what else are you guys saying? We have victims' cars, but took Hunter Chapin's. Wiley victims' cars. Yeah, that is crazy. I mean, something's up with the Chapins. For them, for the family, for the triplets, the surviving triplets to go back to school there right away. That's freaking nuts. And just the family. I like that footage. Who was it who played it in slow motion? I think it was Mark Molina. If not, whoever it was, I'll put a link in the description if I can find it. If it was Mark, he's probably made it private. But it was Stacy Chapin's press conference in front of, I thought it was the police department, but I actually think it was on campus of the university. And she's got the whole family lined up with her. And at one point, Brett Payne walks by in the background, and Bethany and Dylan both walk by, and like some big tall FBI guy tries to kind of block the camera's view of them. But it was very, I thought, in poor taste for these people to just walk by behind the family doing a presser. It wasn't like it was going to be that long. So what was the emergency that they had to get in there right away, and they couldn't just be polite or just go around? They could have gone around. So it kind of seemed intentional to me. Like they were just like, we don't care about you guys. Nothing to see over here, people. Joseph Moore. Okay, I read that one. Why have victims' cars? Yeah. I feel neighbors must have reported something being done with the Jeep. How far back am I? That was almost 15 minutes. Let me get caught up real quick. There's not that many comments. Oh, well, here, I'm rereading all these. You guys aren't commenting very much, and I thought that it was moving more than it is. Okay, here we go. Lindsay sings, dances, and does aerials like Pink. Lindsay, I thought you were talking about Rodney Neiman, but no, you're talking about your tickets to Lindsay Sterling. Hunter Chapin, yes, Hunter's Jeep was taken on 10/13. Isn't that weird? Well, because were they treating him as a suspect initially, since he was, I don't know. It was the other Hunter that was the one that made the call, allegedly, right? Hunter Johnson, I think. Plus plays video. I could have seen Kiely doing that. Plus plays violin. Sorry, the glare on my glasses is no good. Yeah, Kiely played violin for sure. She played the fiddle. We have video footage of her doing that when she was just a little tiny thing. We had cell phone when OJ was going on. Oh, thanks, Annie Ruler. Yeah, I remember. Now that you say that, I remember like the FBI, or not FBI, the X-Files, where they're like making fun of the older cell phones that were like cinder blocks and bricks. So yeah, we did have smaller cell phones. See, I didn't get my first cell phone until right around the year 2000 or somewhere around there. Like I did not want one. I was concerned that they had radiation, and it just seemed unnecessary to be talking to people when you're walking down the street. Like I remember living in San Francisco back then, and people started doing that, but not very often. People would be walking down the street on their phone, and me and my friends would laugh. We'd be like, oh, they're so important, aren't they? And I remember too, when it was like, if you were calling someone from your cell phone while you were, say, waiting in line at the store, you would try to pretend that you were just like hanging out on your couch so that it would not seem like you were just like calling at your convenience, but that you were prioritizing the person. So then if like you heard like an overhead announcement in the background, it's like the jig was up. Do you guys remember that? It was so different. And now it doesn't matter. Like you can be in the middle of like checking out at the cashier. If you call somebody, they're just happy that you called because we're all so busy, right? Let's see. But yeah, thanks for the time frame, because I can't remember anything. We had cell phones. See, when I did the county designated mental health professional work, that was in 98, and we had pagers. We had phones in the glove box of the car. So we could call from a company car, but we got a page when there was a case that we needed to take. We got the phone number, and then we'd call from the landline if we were out and about. It was like really weird to use the mobile phone that was in the car in the glove box, because it just made you feel like a cop. It was hilarious. But yeah, pagers. We were still doing the pagers. Too funny, huh? And then because I was doing it all the way up until like the year 2000 almost. I didn't do it for that long. I just did it for a couple of years. It was very intense work. And yeah, I loved it when I did it, but then I needed to stop. And I'll tell you why I needed to stop, was because I kind of felt like I was part of the problem as far as the system goes. Like, I basically was working for the government. I was working for the county. And I didn't mind taking people's civil rights away when they were a danger to self or others. I felt like I was doing them a favor to do that. And they usually saw it that way too. But what I didn't like was that if they didn't meet criteria, having to not get them the treatment that they needed, because the laws were pretty lax in Washington state, pretty liberal with that you can be as crazy as you want to be as long as you're not endangering yourself or somebody else. And I just thought that was really sad. So that was why I got out of doing that. Let's see. Yes, I would imagine OJ stalked Nicole all the time. Right. And she probably knew it to some degree, but he was probably pretty sneaky, like he was that night, dressed in all black. And, for all we know, he was wearing like a wetsuit. Remember that whole thing with that movie that he was in called Frogman, where he played like a Navy SEAL or something? Yeah. It was a reflection in the water. What was a reflection? Oh, the ear? That's what you're saying about Kiely's ear? Yeah, it's so weird though. I mean, it could be both. It could be like a cauliflower type of ear injury and reflected in the water. Because yeah, it's like there's two holes, which that could be like up here and down here, but it is too flat. It doesn't look right. And then the reflection makes it look like there's four. So yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Her nose looks broken too. Yes, Fred. And I can't remember if it was Shan or Billy. They're both awesome. I love them. That mentioned that it looked like there was tape on her nose. Did you notice that too? And it's so stupid, because it's like, I think I've always noticed it, but it just never registered. We get bombarded with so much information, and we just accept a lot of it on face value. And that's why it's so good to just keep looking and looking and looking. The problem with looking at photographs is you can look at them too long and not be able to see the forest through the trees, right? But also things get distorted. Things get distorted with video footage too. When Kate Middleton, when everybody was saying like her ring kept disappearing, and it's like, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I didn't really see it disappearing, but in the thing over the weekend, I saw a video of somebody saying that you could see one of the guards' leg through Charlotte's foot as she got out of the car. And I don't know. I mean, you could see the guard's leg through her foot as she got out of the car, but could that just be like a thing with the video? I mean, there's a lot of weird anomalies or glitches like that. And yeah, a lot of the anomalies and glitches can be artificial intelligence too. So it's just crazy these days. I mean, we don't know. We absolutely don't know. But yeah, her nose does look broken. Absolutely. The plan, in my opinion, was known. He ended up back at 11:22. Ethan ended up back at 11:22 in the Idaho 4. And the whole thing with Kiely, I saw a really good video a few days ago talking about Kiely, how she'd been gone over the summer. She was in Austin, and then she came back to the house and stayed there for a little bit. And then she was living back at her parents' house for a couple of weeks before she had come back for that party to be Dylan's +1. And yeah, I forgot that she'd been living in Austin. I probably didn't even realize that it was over the summer. I probably thought it was like spring quarter or something like that. I worked at title company. Realtors would call 45 cents a minute. Do not put me on hold. Okay, hold please. Like they could take cuts in hold line at busy job. I worked at title company. Realtors would call 45 cents a minute. Do not put me on hold. Okay, hold please. That's funny. Yeah, like lawyers, when I was in Seattle and had to sue the King County Superior Court, the lawyers charged in increments of 6 minutes. Was that right? I'm thinking it was 6 minute increments, because then it would be like 1/10 of an hour. And if they, at that point in time, they were like less than $300 an hour, but let's just say they were $300 an hour. So anything would be at least $30, because anything would be at least, you'd have to, if it took them a minute or 30 seconds, they would still call it the 6 minutes. They wouldn't cut it smaller than 1/10 of an hour. I don't know if they still do it that way or not. But yeah, nowadays lawyers are more like $500 an hour. It's crazy. So yeah, maybe they have to charge in like increments of 3, right? Cut the hour up into 20 pieces. And then it would still be about the same amount. Off to knee therapy later, ladies. Fred, that's awesome that you're taking care of your knee. That is so good for you. So important. Absolutely. Yes. And we're just over an hour. Let me look at my notes. I think there's a couple of things that I may have wanted to mention that I hadn't gotten to yet. It's just about 12:30. Yeah. I watched a really good What's the Obsession. Again, I think that was last night. That NK, man, she is just so disgusting. And when is she going to get interrogated and held accountable for destroying evidence and obstructing justice and falsifying information, lying to the police? I always say these are just the crimes that we know of, and there's probably a lot more that we don't know of. And apparently she's changed her name to Nicole Miller. Somebody, I think a few people were saying that in Kelly's live last night. So I don't know that that's been vetted, but it sounded like it had been. But yeah, like why not change your first name too? Weird. I mean, to me, it says that she wants to be discovered, like she still wants the attention. Hello, Mrs. Amir. Nice to see you. Yes, indeed. Is statute of limitations out on NK regarding Watts? Well, there's no statute of limitations on Redrum, so I wouldn't think so. I think that the problem is just that we still have the same, or not we, but I mean, yeah, we, the public. Weld County still has the same DA, Rourke, who made that video with his wife recently literally saying, leave NK alone. Him and his wife both said that. It was like they were making fun of the whole Jim thing, but I don't think they were. I think that they were just making fools of themselves. Leave NK alone. She didn't do it. She's innocent. It's like, I can see how people could believe that until they look at the case with more scrutiny. Once you look at the case with more scrutiny, and the DA himself is the one who really points out that she started looking up Shanann and Chris almost a year before the Red Rums, like September of 2017. And then it was the media who accidentally assumed that that was a typo and that she was looking them up after the fact. And DA Rourke was like, no, that was not a typo. That is accurate. September of 2017. So, sorry, let me drink some water. There's a lot of things in these cases that are mentioned. And if it's mentioned, it has to be important or it wouldn't be mentioned. Man, I really have a frog in my throat. One sec. I might have to wrap up shortly. My apologies. Let me clear my throat. So what was I saying? When things are mentioned, like the gym, the possibility of NK and Chris Watts meeting at the gym is brought up several times in the case. And in interviews with her directly, they ask her about going to a gym. And she even says, like, oh, no, I know I'm hotter than heck, but, I don't even work out that often. It's hilarious. But we know that Chris had his own gym in his basement, and that when their parents would come visit for extended periods, that they would stay in the basement. So then he probably would go to the gym. So, why is the gym being brought up? Probably because they met at the gym. I don't know. They certainly seem like they had been carrying on for longer than the time that they admitted to. And perhaps they were. Perhaps things just really heated up in the time that they admitted to. But yeah, NK didn't start working at Anadarko until I think roughly 4 months before it happened, like maybe March, April, something like that of that year, 2018. And then March, April, May, June, by June, I think is when the emails were happening. And then July was her birthday, and kind of the beginning of the end, because I think Shanann went to North Carolina in late June because she was there for 6 weeks. Yeah, so it would have been like mid to late June. And then, I remember when I first was learning about the case that Chris was saying that he was going to come visit for a long time before he ever did. Like he finally got there the last 6 days of the trip. But, maybe that was the plan. Maybe that was misinformation. Maybe he was postponing going because he wanted to carry on with his freedom. And, it sounds like Shanann had trouble flying with the 2 toddlers, which honestly anybody would. So her dad had flown out there to Colorado to fly back with them when they came out to visit in June. And then she was probably waiting for Chris to get there before she flew back. So, but I think that they were planning on staying for 6 weeks. I always thought that Chris was supposed to be there sooner and that he kept pushing it back. Do you guys have any information about that? Because that hasn't been talked about in a long time. I should ask Kelly. Kelly will know. She knows everything. So DAs are elected. Okay, YouTubers need to campaign that town. And, a new DA was what turned the Pamela Hupp case around. So For anybody who's not familiar with that Pamela Hupp case in Missouri, the thing about Pam is the mini series that Renee Zellweger starred in, and they just had all kinds of corruption in that town. Everybody knew everybody. And then the new DA ran on the platform that they were corrupt and that there was nepotism and that he was going to undo all that. And he got elected, and then he undid the cover up with Pam Hupp and, was it Rusty Faria? Is that the husband's name, who was incarcerated for the stabbing of his wife, Faria? I can't remember her first name, if anybody can. Or if I just Google Pam Hupp. Oh, what a nut job. And she was like Murdoch with, remember when he hired his friend or family member to shoot him so that he would look less like a perp and more like a victim? She did the same kind of thing. And that was the first red rum that she got busted for. So Russ Faria, oh man, the person that he married the, if you guys know the Pam Hupp story, if you don't, you need to watch it. It's really good. Russ Faria married the woman that Pam Hupp tried to abduct and unalive when she abducted the man that had a compromised like head injury and unalived him. So her name was Carol McAfee. And then she introduced herself to Russ at one of his trials. And now they're married. I mean, that is pretty wild. It's pretty cute. Betsy Faria. And I didn't even see it. I remembered it with my own brain. So exciting. Oh, let's see. Let me put that down. Quit fubbing my people. Yeah, that Pamela Hupp case is awful. It's awful. I mean, she got away with red rum with so many people. And, you know, these people, when they get caught, you just don't know what else they've done that went under the radar. You know, when you look at all of the crimes that JP's committed, I mean, he's an admitted pedo. He's an admitted criminal. Why in the world did his criminal history get expunged? That's not right. That is not right. But these places have some severe corruption, in my humble opinion. Let's see. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Annie Ruler, about DAs being elected. They bonded. You know, I want to get back to the whole thing with steroids too, because I think that steroids could have a lot more bearing in these cases. Even, you know, I like to talk about the Mo Wilson case sometimes. I mean, I think that the Caitlin Armstrong is in prison for 90 years or something like that, which is fabulous. But I don't know that full justice has been had for Mo Wilson. It seems to me that Colin Strickland obstructed justice and did some other shady things that I don't know. But being that he was in a competitive athlete, a lot of competitive athletes will say that steroids are part of the landscape, that it's not just Lance Armstrong. You're not going to be able to be at that level of competition if you don't do some kind of performance enhancement. So some performance enhancements are legal and some are not. And the thing with steroids is that it makes people more angry and it makes people more aggressive. So I wonder, even in that case, if Caitlin might have been using steroids. I mean, she was a cut yoga instructor, And she would try to keep up with Colin with his cycling, and she couldn't keep up, and she was always getting left in the dust. So it wouldn't surprise me if maybe she was messing around with stuff like that, trying to keep up with her boyfriend. And then especially when he had an affair with another cyclist that could keep up with him. But I've wondered it with Scammy, with her aggressiveness, and like the Incredible Hulk videos that she likes to make of herself, and that vein that bulges out of her forehead. And she did lose a lot of weight, a significant amount of weight, I think, in the period right up before Kiely's crisis or demise. Certainly we know for a fact that in Idaho 4 that the steroids were part of that situation. So when you look at professional sports, you also have to look at college sports, because a lot of college sports are just as serious as professional sports. So Coomer Scott Green's granddad, I want to say, was the athletic director at the University of Idaho. I'll have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure that I came across that a few months ago and was like, whoa, what are the chances? And why is it never talked about? Should I look it up right now? Should I fub you guys before we wrap up, or should we just wrap up? Yes, YouTubers need to campaign that town. And then obviously with JP, he was taking steroids, and well, he was injecting Micah with the steroids. So probably that's an assumption, that's a theory, that he probably was abusing steroids too. He was, a lot of guys like to abuse Viagra, and who knows? I mean, I know that I hear that the steroids shrink your junk, but do they give you like a Viagra thing too? I mean, apparently they do for women. That's why he would inject Micah with steroid shots, is that it's like Viagra for women. So what was I going to look up real quick? Coomer Scott Green's grandfather being the, being the athletic director. I'm pretty sure Coomer Scott Green, granddad. Athletic director. Sorry, you guys, for my fubbing you. At UI. First thing that comes up. I Googled Coomer Scott Green, granddad, athletic director, UI. And the very first thing that comes up, and I'll try to put a link to this in the description. This was December 29th, 2023. It's titled University of Idaho President's Family Once Owned Home Where Students, ... But then the first sentence is Scott Green has given speeches, interviews, and press release statements, ... Grandfather, who was the athletic director at the time. Wow. See, these things go a lot deeper. So let's just say that there's something going on with the university, with the athletic department, with the steroids. And then wasn't the kid, Caden Young, that passed away over in Western Washington, not too far from the town of Castle Rock, which is where Brett Payne also owns, has like a, I don't know, a thing with his business, with his meats and locker. Caden Young, no, he didn't play football. It was the other Caden Young that played football, right? But Caden Young had been a president of one of the fraternities, and I don't think it was Sigma Chi. I think it was a different one, but it could have been Sigma Chi, but I think it was a different one. Anyway, he had been the president of the fraternity, but he was also the editor of the Argonaut, the newspaper for the school. So for him to just happened to pass away over there in Western Washington, not too far from Castle Rock, where Brett Payne just happens to own a business. These things are crazy, you guys. I mean, the trafficking of substances, the trafficking of steroids, if that was a thing, and if Caden Young knew about that. I mean, it sounds like there was like the whole Fight Club thing with Sigma Chi is the fraternity that Brad Pitt belonged to when he was in college. And then we all know that he starred in the movie Fight Club. I mean, these things are just so freaking bizarre. The ties are so deep. You know, it's not random. These 4 people were not a random attack by some vegan incel. I can almost guarantee it. I would say that I can guarantee it, but, you know, I'd say there's no guarantees in life. But if I think that that's a guarantee about as close as you can come. I don't think that the criminal defendant did it. I think that he's completely the fall guy for a whole lot of crazy. So Coomer Scott Green's granddad was the athletic director. So what does his dad do other than own a bunch of properties? What did his mom do? I'll have to look into that. So we'll sign off here, you guys. I like to try to keep my videos not too terribly long. I mean, I love you and I could talk to you all day, all day and all night. I'm just really happy to see you. Thanks for being here. And don't forget to hit that like button on the way out if you haven't already. And Caden passed where Demetrius and Emma drove him to and left him to go to the gym. Annie allegedly was air, but in needle. Okay, so I thought it was fentanyl because he had almost passed away. He had been at Harborview Medical Facility the night before he passed away. So I thought that he had almost overdosed and then he overdosed or something like that. Or he was sent home from the hospital and then passed. But also, thanks for bringing it up because I wanted to remember to mention how Emma and Demetrius were arrested and jailed simultaneously at the same time that the criminal defendant was being held. I mean, he's still being held there, but they were held there for a couple of months and then they were sprung on the technicality that they couldn't be held in the Latah County jail when the kid passed away out of state, even though the substances originated in Latah County, right? So that's kind of like arguable. And then it seemed that when they were sprung, that the plan was to press charges in, I'm trying to remember what county that would be, south of Thurston County. And I can't remember, but just south of Thurston County where Chehalis and Centralia, there was one of those 2 towns, Chehalis and Centralia. I think, anyway, and then Castle Rock is extremely rural. It's a creepy place. Chehalis and Centralia are not so rural, but they're pretty different, shall we say. They're not like the rest of Western Washington. Anyway, what's the obsession? Hello, my dear. You did a great live last night, honey. So thank you for coming on in. It's so nice to see you. And I was just wrapping up talking about the Caden Young's passing and Demetrius Robinson and Emma Bailey getting cut loose and sprung from the Latah County Jail. And they had like a hearing on the same day as Koberger, right? That was so bizarre. And then they never got rearrested. Like they definitely seem like they're CIs or something like that. EB and DJ release date. BK had court date. They had their attorney talk to Judge John Judge, JJJ, acknowledge it in the afternoon. Everyone hit the like for Justice A to Z. Oh, you're so sweet, Kelly. It was awesome to catch some of your live last night. So you were just hammering away at that case. I was talking about it earlier in this live, and I don't know if I should say something on the NK topic before wrapping up since you're here. Oh, there was a question. Do you guys remember what the question was that I had that I wanted to ask Kelly? I was just like 10 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago, I was like, oh, Kelly would know. She knows everything. Was it something about steroids? You guys help me out here, please. I don't know what their deal is. I have to look back into that case. And please, something about NK. I'm sure it will be good. Yeah, I'll just text it to you when I remember it, because I'll rewatch the video and I'll write it down and I'll text it to you, because I try to review all my videos so that I can do quality control, especially because when I'm doing them routinely, I feel like I'm much better at it. And when I'm not doing them as routinely, it's harder to have a good flow. And I love just being spontaneous. And, it's like, it's okay with me if I forget what I'm talking about in the middle of my sentence. That's part of being just normal and natural. But it's just more fun, I think, to keep it really improvisational, basically. I still get nervous doing live streams. Oh yeah, it's fun though. Like it's like the excitement and the anxiety. Like before I turn on the live, I'm like, oh no, it's time. But then I'm like totally into it. I mean, it's sort of like anybody who has been in theater or, performed at like any kind of public speaking. It's like you get nervous, and your instinct is to run and hide and not want to do it. But then once you get started, if you know the material that you're talking about, then it's fun. If you don't know the material you're talking about, then you need to not be talking about it, right? I mean, and that goes for any kind of public speaking or presentation. But I'd say definitely with the YouTube. And that's why I try to know as much as I can about these cases before I speak to them, because you might think but there's going to be different takes on things. So I still get, yeah. And that kind of excitement is what makes it fun. I mean, nervousness, anxiety, and excitement, they all kind of get bundled into one. So, yeah. And I love it. I mean, I'd say that I'm kind of a ham. I have to be honest. Just like I haven't done much theater in my life, and I haven't done much public speaking, but usually when I have done it, once I get rolling, I freaking love it. And I'm just like, kind of on fire. But now that I've said that, I'm always suspicious, or, I'm always sus. I'm kidding. I'm always thinking that I'm going to curse myself. So, I'm always like, as soon as I say something, I'm like, I just blew it. Totally blew it. I shouldn't have said that. So, yeah. Was I saying something? Was I thinking something? What was I thinking? On that, let's just wrap her up. Nobody here can remember what the question was that I had for Kelly. Like I said, I'm just going to have to do the replay crew myself and figure it out. So thanks for hanging with me, and love to all, especially you, my dear. And when is your last day of school, Annie Ruler? I mean, when is your last day of school? That was to Kelly, but then Annie did her heart. So, all right, you guys, I'm going to sign off before I continue to unravel in front of you. I love you. Have a great afternoon. We are at the afternoon part of the day now, and take really good care of yourself. Try to get some sunshine, fresh air, and exercise. Stay hydrated. Get your nourishment. Eat your protein, fruits and veggies. most importantly, just be kind to yourself, kind to other people. And, I find this helpful all the time, just to focus on gratitude and focus on good things rather than pick things apart and focus on what you don't have, or like what, the things about your job that you don't like. Just focus on the things that you do. There's always so much to be grateful for. And have a great day, everyone. I'm still trying to think of that thing, Kelly. Oh, but I am superstitious. I'm definitely superstitious. So, I looked up conspiracy again yesterday, and it just cracks me up how the meaning of the word is so simple. It just means that people discussed and planned a crime. That's all it means. And people just go so nuts with this whole oh, somebody's a conspiracy theorist, or I don't want to be labeled a conspiracy theorist. And it's like, okay, well, if things weren't planned and they were done by just one person, then there's no conspiracy. But how often is that the case, especially when you're dealing with the types of cases that we look at on true crime channels on YouTube? I mean, I don't think one person could unalive 3 people all by himself all at once. To finish off on that case, on the Watts case real quick, Kelly, if you're still here, I really think that Watts probably unalived the kids himself, possibly, or with the help of his skank hoe, we'll just call her, prior to Shanann arriving. I think that they wouldn't have wanted to take chances with, he's got that crazy story that he had unalived them, but then they came into the room when he was unaliving her. I think that Chris Watts is completely insane. Let me just say that as a mental health professional, I think he's 100% effing crazy, and that he probably had hallucinations of them coming back to life. I don't think that they did. I know that that's possible when you suffocate someone, that they can lose consciousness and then not be quite deceased. But I just don't think that any of the 3 renditions of what happened, I don't think any of his 3 stories are very even remotely true. I think that the truth is that NK was there and that she participated. I think that the truth is that she helped plan it with them. So yeah, I think they were co-conspirators, and I hope that she can get the book thrown at her one of these days. Kelly's on it. Kelly's going to make sure that it happens, and Kelly's taken on the DA herself because, man, she's got some cojones, doesn't she? Kelly, in your dad's spirit, I'm so sorry about you losing your dad a few months ago. In his spirit, you can do it. You can take this guy out. You got it. You got it going on, girl. All right. Love and light, people. See you on the next one. Have a lovely afternoon. And thanks for being here. Thanks for watching.